So the certification program is developed by the Rocky Mountain Institute and Systemics, and this is just creating that market mechanism simply to just reward that low methane gas production. And so it's a framework. It's evaluating not only an operator's methane intensity, but also their company practices and just a holistic view to give their gas molecules a grade using a scoring system ranging from A through F. And so each MMBtu of gas gets a certificate representing that methane performance, and then that's tracked in the MiQ digital registry. So this gives premium or preferential access to those buyers that are seeking that low emissions gas. And we're seeing that this aligns with the EU methane regulation and just with other company ESG expectations of moving towards this low methane gas. One of the big portions of this certification program is that it provides credible third-party proof of methane, that performance. And so it's not just that operator-stated ESG performance, it has that auditable component of it as well. So right now, MiQ is reporting that they have 28 billion MMBtu certified on the MiQ registry, 30 BCF per day of gas certified, and 129 audits. And so each of those certificates requires that audit process to be certified. So again, this is just creating that market recognition for the low methane intensity gas. And so why does this matter? So this is really about market differentiation. This isn't just compliance. MiQ certification is fundamentally creating a way to differentiate gas in the market based on that methane performance, which is something that didn't necessarily exist before. So under this program, gas becomes graded, it's not commoditized, and what we're seeing is that buyers, particularly on the LNG and the European buyers, they're starting to care, and we're seeing those signals of price premiums or preferred access through programs such as these. And so these buyers need that credible third-party signal to know what the footprint of a methane molecule of gas is and what it actually is, and that's done then through the certification program. And it's beyond just that self-reported ESG claim. So it's creating that common standardized signal across operators for them to use, for buyers to use credibly. And so what we're seeing is that the transparency is really expanding beyond just the buyers. This is becoming more relevant for investors and regulators. We're seeing that investors are looking at methane risk and just overall performance. And then regulators are moving towards more of that measurement-based requirement. So talking about measurement-based reporting in OGMP 2.0, this is just that certification to say, yes, that's been done, and this is a low methane molecule of gas. And so certification ultimately helps operators stay ahead of both of these. And so really what we're seeing with any of these voluntary initiatives, the real goal here is to drive operational change. And so this isn't just labeling performance, it's actually designed to improve it. And operators move towards, if they start on a particular grade, they can move up to a higher grade of gas as they continue to implement different policies, additional technology, and just are ultimately reducing that methane intensity of their gas. And so just one of the things to note with MiQ is that it can be done on a portion of assets, but really this encourages operators to scale those best practices across their asset bases as they continue to grow and continue to improve on their methane practices. And so this is where continuous monitoring can become critical. You can't differentiate or certify or improve your performance without having that actual credible ongoing measurement, and continuous monitoring helps operators do just that. So the MiQ certification program has 3 pillars. The first is what we call methane intensity. So ultimately just the methane emissions per unit of gas produced, either for gas or petroleum operations. I won't get into all the grading here, but an A grade specifically has a less than or equal to 0.05% methane intensity. So just as a reference there. There's a full scoring rubric that goes into this, and each of the pillars have their own scoring components. So methane intensity is the first. The second is company practices. So this is just the detailed review of the protocols, operational protocols that an operator has in place to ensure those controls. So that can include just their measurement policies, their LDAR practices, any maintenance programs, and just ongoing emissions management in general, what those practices are. And then the third component is what MiQ refers to as the monitoring technology development, or MTD. So this is the component that ensures that emissions are actually being measured. This can include a whole host of multiple layered technologies, continuous monitoring being one part of those. And all 3 of these elements are verified through an independent third-party audit. And so before certification is granted, all of the pillars and all of the components have to go through that audit, through that scoring rubric, and then that obtains gas grading between A and F. And so right now, MiQ is noting that just less than 80% or 79% of their gas certificates are A grade, again, with the ability for operators to move through that grading system. And so how Cube fits into this, we fit into the monitoring technology development, as well as being able to help operators calculate their methane intensity. Operators can achieve a higher score with either more frequent LDAR scans or with the use of continuous monitoring on their assets. And so MiQ has a list of approved technology vendors. Cube is one of those. There's many different technology suites as well, providers for this third pillar here. So MiQ explicitly evaluates how operators are monitoring, and it's not just whether they have LDAR programs in place, but whether they actually have ongoing visibility into their emissions. And so that monitoring technology development is really one of those core pillars. Continuous monitoring can help companies strengthen that score, moving beyond just doing snapshot periodic-based approaches and having that continuous data in between. So that continuous monitoring can help unlock and really be defensible with measurement-based data, not just those bottom-up estimates. And so that helps in supporting the methane intensity calculations. And just with emissions being so temporally variable, having the ability to understand when intermittent emissions are occurring, short duration events, being able to capture events when they happen, not just necessarily when they're surveyed. And then it also reduces reliance on just those emission factors, having that measurement-based approach. Pardon me. So for the certification program, it's not enough just to simply say that emissions are low. You actually have to prove it with that auditable data. And so continuous monitoring can help with that. It can provide that time-stamped detection for records. When did an emission start? When did it end? The documented response, if there was any repair actions associated with an emission event, and then just gives operators a stronger position during those third-party audits to have the data to back up all of their events. And so part of this, the benefit of these programs, it's really the strengthened operational response. So it's not just the reporting of emissions. This is really how operators are managing their day-to-day emissions, responding to events quickly, especially those large impactful events, being able to reduce those, and then just having that continuous improvement loop is a real benefit of these programs. So what we're seeing is a real alignment of operational efficiency from operators, emissions reduction, and then using that layered technology approach for their certification. A large part of them are using this continuous monitoring as part of that continuous improvement loop as well. So this is just a bit of an operational workflow. We're seeing that methane management isn't just a set of disconnected activities. It's a really continuous operational system with a closed loop workflow. So it would start with continuous monitoring across assets. And again, for MiQ certification, this can be a portion of assets, scaling into larger portions of that as an operator grows within the voluntary program. This is really giving visibility into what's actually happening in the field. And so then detection is ultimately driving action. So find emissions quickly, fix them quickly, gives that visibility into rapid detection, and then that faster response on large events. And so then as these detections are coming or being collected, all of that measurement data is supporting those methane intensity calculations and emissions inventories, moving beyond those estimates. And then all of this activity is brought into a structured auditable record. This is a real key part of this. Obviously, with the certification program, you have to have that backup data to be able to show what's been done, show what's been emitted, the when and the where. This is really critical. And then having that traceability for the certification program. And so that's what ultimately supports the certification, but it really doesn't stop there. So the certification loop is this closed loop. It drives continuous feedback. It's not a one-time achievement. Ultimately, it's a measurement-driven cycle of improvement. So we're seeing operators can really use the data, understand, and then get better as they're moving towards these cycles with a layered approach for multiple technologies. So we're seeing a lot of movement from the U.S. operators where a lot of the MiQ certification programs initially started in U.S. basins. This has moved now into more international markets, both on offshore upstream operators and then midstream companies as well, just across the full value chain. And so notably, I like to mention this, it's exciting for Canada. Canada's largest natural gas producer just last month announced their MiQ certification. And so it's just exciting to see other markets gaining traction in some of these voluntary initiatives. We're seeing more of a shift towards this internationally, which is great. And so having that MiQ certification, it's driving a shift towards hybrid monitoring architectures as well. It's no longer just this single technology kind of platform. We're seeing that there's a combination of technologies that operators can choose depending on what works best for their assets. And so those can all be used and given different point scoring within the rubric system for their certification. So that can include continuous monitoring, those periodic surveys as part of a traditional LDAR program, layering and aerial surveys, drone or satellite data for more basin-wide coverage, and then still having those engineering and inventory methods to have that methane-based performance from the bottoms-up side of things as well. So some of the key takeaways here, we're really seeing that the industry is shifting from just emission estimates using emission factors to more of a measurement-based approach for frameworks such as OGMP 2.0 and these MiQ certification programs. And so we're seeing that as certified gas markets are emerging, buyers are really wanting that traceable low methane intensity gas with that auditable performance. And so these programs are really helping operators do just that. So we're seeing that operators that are implementing, continuous monitoring as a suite of technology. They're combining that with their measurement-based inventories and then having that third-party certification. They're really well positioned to move through either meeting or exceeding regulations that are coming into play or existing currently. Having access to those differentiated gas markets is a real incentive for companies that are looking to really prove their performance and then be given credit for that. And then just having the backup data, the performance data for the creditable audit trails. That's a big component of these programs as well.